All right, Josh Smith here, live at my Flat 5 studio. Today, my guest is a really good friend of mine and one of my favorite, not just guitar players, but artists in the world. He's a tremendous player, singer, writer, and just a great dude. He lives in Chicago, but he's from Israel. We have a lot in common just as far as, our age and the things that we love and our life and all that type of stuff. And he has a great new record called Joy is Coming that you should have. And if you don't, you should pick it up now. But we'll get into that during the conversation. But everybody, please welcome my friend Guy King.
Hey, Josh. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, man. Of course. So I kind of start all these by asking everybody, how the guitar ends up in their hands the first time and a little bit about their family and if they come from a musical family or not. I don't come from a musical family, so it was kind of random that the guitar ended up with me. How did it end up with you? I think maybe I heard you started on clarinet or something like that. Is that right?
You got it, man. First, I'm watching these when you do it. So, again, really thanks for having me. I know we're friends and everything, but it means a lot, and we'll get into some more connections between us. But late at night in the wee hours when I'm holding our little baby or, because I have a little newborn, I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, Josh got a new one. And I'm sitting down like quietly while he's sleeping on me and watching him. And I love
Right.
those. So it's
Thanks, man.
great, So I really I love the show. So
Good. Well, I'm glad we finally got you on here.
yes, so it's a musical family. My parents did not. It's a great story. I think I love that story. My parents never could afford themselves, so they loved music like dearly and deeply. But the way they grew up, they didn't have enough to afford music. So when they came to Israel in the mid '40s, they when they finally met each other and formed a family, one of the important things for them was to have all of our children play, all their kids play. So in my household, there was music on all the time. I think they both sang nice, Josh. They passed away when I was a little younger, when I
Mm.
just turned 20, but they sang just for fun, and their love for music was huge. Classical and opera my mother loved, but also regular pop or whatever whatever was playing if it was good. So they made us all play for us in the household. I'm the youngest of four children, two older brothers and older sister, and then way later I was born. So they made us all play to the point where they didn't even ask. It was like going to school. You had to pick up an instrument. You could pick it up. You could choose one if we could afford it. So my oldest brother played clarinet. My second oldest brother played guitar, and so we had a nylon string at the house and an acoustic. And
Oh,
my sister played piano, mostly classical. She was really good, and they all played like kind of professionally, semi-professional amateur in their teens. And then I started very young. I sang when I was three, probably at the house, and imitating Michael Jackson moves, Thriller and stuff. And then I always sang what I heard. And then my father really liked the clarinet, so we had one. We had a good one for my oldest brother, and they put me in the conservatory when I was six, I think. And I played, by the time I was nine, I think I was in the orchestra in the big band. And then just listening a lot and always tried to pick up the guitar for my second oldest brother, and I was little,
right.
so I tried to get around it when I was sitting like this and couldn't. And then at 13, I was like, a friend showed me a couple of chords, like a G and a D, open chords E, and I just was like, wow, so I could sing and play chords to sing with, and it was it. The orchestra at the conservatory asked me to said, okay, you ready to continue next year? I said, no, I wanted a saxophone. So they were supposed to give me a saxophone. Uh, and it took time for the repair. By that time, I made my first chord, my first note, and it was
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah.
just wanted to play guitar.
What kind of music did your parents listen to? Like, what were they into? What were they listening to at home?
I think I remember a huge love for classical music,
Mm.
like deep into it. And there was a radio station. We had an old an old radios that was always on. They woke up like at 5:30 in the morning. I remember waking up at like 6:30 or 7, and it was already beyond, and I'll be hearing music. A lot of classical. My mother loved opera when it was a good one that she liked. Uh, but the music of the time in Israel, I was born in October 3rd, 1977. In the 70s, mid 60s, 70s, music in Israel was great. I think it was worldwide. To tell you the truth, I think it's a phenomenon. It was influenced by a lot of American music, a lot of Beatle influences, a lot of music from Brazil, like the bossa nova of Jobim. You could hear those chords and a lot of the pop music of Israel at the time. So, you know, local music of the era on the radio regularly. I do remember them liking Ray Charles and my father loving Louis Armstrong. Like, so I don't know if they would actually play a lot of it, but if there were some stations on the radio that every time it would come on, they'd be like, listen to this. And I definitely remember Georgia on My Mind and I Can't Stop Loving You, like the Ray Charles hits, the ones that crossed over, playing on that radio station, as well as Louis Armstrong. And every time it came on, my father would kind of turn me on to that. They loved Elvis. I remember this clearly. I think even like I remember songs. I don't know why you asked me that, like Blueberry Hill, like Fats Domino. And I was I told my daughter the other day. I said, "Do you know Blueberry Hill?" She was no, and I asked to play like that was on Elvis a lot. I remember my mother loved it, my father too, but not to the point where they were like put on record. It was just
Right.
So those were the things I remember most. But I also remember that my sister, again, I'm the youngest of four by much. So my sister would there were two there were two records in the house, like LPs. One Michael Jackson Thriller and one David Bowie Last Dance. They were hers. There were others, but I must have heard those like a million times. My brothers played a lot of Clapton in the house, and hence we'll get to it, but I remember it being drilled to my ears. I also remember like drilled. I think he even saw him in Israel. Like he came to do a concert. Must have been 1980 or 81. We went to see him. I remember it has like one has nothing to do with the other, but I remember Marvin Gaye's Sexual Healing that he played, and I was like, what is that? Because it was different. So I kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah. It's interesting when I talk to a lot of my friends from Israel. It seemed like Clapton must have just been enormous in Israel because everybody I talked to, it was like they were hearing Clapton constantly. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Yeah.
Enormous. I almost think of him. He was like the famous Clapton is God graffiti. He was not. I did not know about that till way later, but it seems to me that they were marketing it like whenever you thought about somebody with a guitar, he was the model. You always thought, oh, it's Eric Clapton, but not the Cream. The thing is, later when you get into guitar, you think John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, the Cream, where he was the Clapton of Cocaine, of Wonderful Tonight, of the big hits. In the 70s. That's what they were marketing more than anything, and it got over. I also remember James Brown, the early hits. For some reason, it must have been friends or family that was playing it, and Stevie Wonder, always gonna. But again, the very known songs, You Are the Sunshine of My Life, My Cherie Amour, that type of
thing. Yeah. So when you're playing in conservatory and stuff, and I guess obviously the first time you play guitar, you pick up your brother's guitar, your friends show you chords, things like that. When do you kind of, in your mind realize this is something you might want to do? Because we all kind of come to this little moment of realization where it's kind of not just an enjoyment, but something we have to do. What was that like for you, and did you play at school at all, or was it separate completely, school and conservatory?
It was separate. It was because it was my parents actually drove me like 25 minutes to say the name. So I grew up in a very small town. Like small, I mean, there were 68 families. It was really rural. You know, there was five. It's called a moshav. It's like an agriculture type village. You know, it's
Okay.
not. It wasn't a kibbutz. There was a commune. It was everybody to himself. But a lot of fields, a lot of agriculture, a lot of chicken coops and cows and things like this. You know, a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
fruits growing and vegetables. So there were five of those little villages that were connected like they were one. Each one of them had about 70 families. So
Hmm.
that was the deal. So they would drive me to Ashdod, which is a city in the center south, going south on the beach. That's where the closest conservatory was. That was known for certain quality. The orchestra was kind of known, so they wanted me to get the best education musically that they could give me. So looking back now as a father, I have to say that the admiration I have for them for taking me for clarinet lesson once a week, taking me to an orchestra, and being the ones that not making it seem like okay, we're gonna take you, like come, we have a lesson, making it a
Yeah. Yeah.
beautiful experience. I don't take it for granted. I didn't then, but now as a father, as a young father, I'm like, wow, they really wanted to give their children something. So the conservatory was in a different. So the kids at school, it was the countryside. They didn't know that much about that. In the
Gotcha.
country, they didn't have it yet. Later on, they started bringing guitar lessons to the village, to the
Hmm.
center. So it was a separate thing. The kids knew that I played, and sometimes they would have like a ceremony in the first classes, and they would ask me if I would play a tune, or something.
Yeah.
So I did. But when I turned 13 and picked up the guitar, around that same time there was a band already at the school from from guys and a singer, a female singer, bass player. That's the one that was a close friend of me. His name was Portia, and showed me the first few chords. The
Hmm.
drummer, which is still we still talk on the phone. And another guitar player, and we kind of they were really into the Beatles and local music and some rock and Queen and Dire Straits. Those some other music that I heard a lot. And I joined the band kind of first listening and then playing that solo on the clarinet, and I'm like, it doesn't really go, with that type of music. I tried to, but so it motivated me to pick up a guitar to play some rhythm,
Hmm.
acoustic, and sing. This was really the beginning, but I'm 13 going on 14 years old then, and I have to tell you, I think it was it for me. Like the moment that I don't think it was it happened I got so into it that I wanted to buy an electric guitar. I saved my money. My father said, we can get you one. And I said, no. We had an old electric, like, it's like a Sears guitar, a red one, built like a Telecaster with two, like, weird radio pickups with a square headstock. It
Hmm.
barely, but the action was here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I couldn't do anything. But I told him, no, I felt like I need to do it. And I worked in the fields and stuff, and mowed lawns and did country work and saved enough money. He took me to Tel Aviv, to the big city, and we bought my first guitar. It was made in the U.S. It was made in the U.S. A Fender Stratocaster black because Clapton had one. So that was the
Yeah.
guitar I wanted. Later on, I realized, man, I got the rosewood neck and not the maple, but I didn't know it then.
Yeah.
And within, I don't want to exaggerate, no, within 6 months, Josh, the first show I was just playing rhythm. We had a big show scheduled, and playing chords. The second show was 6 months later, maybe less, and I was playing like Clapton solos. 6 months into
Wow.
this, I was into. I wouldn't tell you about. There's somebody has a video of it, so but it wasn't. It was pretty good though, I have to tell you. But I was so obsessed. He said, "How long did it take you to know that I wanted to do?" I think the moment that I played and felt the string and knew that I could sing with it, and then maybe have a single note that can sing, I was like, "Oh my god!" And it was done. I was like, "I'm gonna have to do that." I was really active in sports. I played handball, soccer, basketball. Slowly, it all became like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
played socially, not anymore in the team because it was all the time. I wanted to either rehearse with the band or sit. You know, Friday nights the guys go to on the girls. Hey, we're going out to the pizza place. I'm like, I'll come later. What's wrong with you? I'm like, nothing. I need to play. They said, play later. I said, no, you don't understand. I want to play this thing. So
Yeah.
It
It's
just
funny how
happened.
that happens. It's like it just takes over everything, and not in a way that you're upset about. You're excited about it because it was like, yeah, I played baseball and I loved baseball, but the better I got at guitar, the less I wanted to play baseball. You know what I mean? I just
I
wanted to spend all my time playing guitar. You
and
know?
it's crazy. I see that I saw you talk and explain yours, and I saw some of the interviews that you did, and I'm like, it's gonna be weird because some of the answers are gonna be identical, but I guess that's what it is, you know. The
Yeah,
background
well,
maybe,
I
but
mean,
that's how it
there's a
happens, you
lot of
know.
shared, everybody kind of course has their own story, but there is very much, something gets you excited and lights the fuse, and you can't turn back after that. So okay, so you're learning, you're playing in bands with your friends, you're playing Clapton solos all of a sudden on your
Yes.
Strat, and so then by then you and your parents probably know. Oh, he's lost. This is what he's going to do.
Yeah.
There's no turning back. Um, what's next after that? I'm sure you start playing gigs, like you
Yes.
said, and little things. What about school? Do you start talking about what you're going to do when you're done with school? And also, I know in Israel you have to go into the military for a few years, so you got to think about that. What
Yeah.
was what was the thought process there?
It was a
Also,
tricky time.
were your parents worried that you wanted to be a musician at all, at least
Definitely.
professionally?
Definitely. Definitely. So I was good at school. I was like, I don't know the term popular, but I had friends and I played a lot of sports. So being in a team, you're around people, not like the, all of a sudden I'm a bit more not secluded, but more time to myself. I'm spending
Yeah.
more time in the room playing. My brother comes home and he hears the guitar. He's like, "What?" My brother, he thought I was playing a record, and he was like, "What is it?" And my mother goes, "It's your brother." He said, "He's playing the Clapton." So he had a Eric Clapton story, like a collection,
Uh,
which had, by the way, Cocaine, Lay Down Sally, Crossroads, but it also had Further On Up the Road and Rambling on My Mind.
mm,
And Have You Ever Loved a Woman on that collection? It's called Story. I can see it. And I'm
yeah.
playing the solo, and he runs upstairs and said, "What?" He's playing the solo, and my mother tells him, "He's been really playing." I said, "But it's only been a few months. When did he pick it up?" It was that quick. It was like I wanted to play, and I was like listening all the time. And now I'm in high school. Eighth grade is over in the village, and I'm going to a larger area with more people. They knew that I sang because the band did a few shows at school, you know. So I sang and played, and all of a sudden there's some ceremonies, end of school year, a holiday, and they asked
Hmm.
me if I would sing. So, and the principal really liked the fact. So she was like, let him do his thing. She really supported me, like, because she saw I was helping. She was like, he's good at school. He's helping us and he's doing those ceremonies for us. Because we would like put on a production. The big
Yeah.
congas, the bass, I would play, bring like three vocalists. It was a nice little thing. So I immersed myself in that. Rehearsals at my drummer's chicken coop in the middle of the field. We kind of set it up as a rehearsal. The drums were there, the amps would leave there, the PA system, some lights. One day a big snake crawled right on there and was like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Brand." It's a huge one. They look at me, I'm playing and singing like, and they stop and look at me like, I said, "What's wrong?" Like, look, and I see like on the chicken coop wire right next to me, like a big snake. And I'm like, man, I almost took the guitar and ran out the door. So this was the life. All of a sudden, sports like between classes on breaks, not in the after hours too much. And army is always on because I'm 14 at this time, 14, 15. You know that you have 3 years. At 18, I'm going to the army. By the time I'm finishing high school, I was pretty good at school, majoring in physics, chemistry, math, English. So my mother is like, she sees and she already saying, "So what, do you know what you want to do after that?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to play." "Yeah, but you're good at school. You can be a doctor or a lawyer and play for fun." I said, "What?" At this time, I heard of Stevie Ray Vaughan already, so the guitar is becoming more dominant. You know,
Hmm.
the music is becoming more guitar dominant than music, like it was
Yeah,
before
yeah, yeah, yeah.
at this era. So I'm like, no, I think I need to commit. And I read the Studio Farm book and the Clapton book, and I get a VHS, like a videotape, a cassette, and now I can see how to lay a chord really, like how Clapton does it. Now then I'm like, okay, so I am legitimate.
Yeah.
And one thing leads to another, and she was like, you should do it as a, don't stop it. We always want you to play, but be a lawyer, be a doctor. You don't need to. I didn't say anything, but in my mind, no, I have to commit. You can't. It's not a. Looking back, she may have been a little bit right. It's good to do, but I don't know if you can reach certain levels. You can't worship two gods. I don't mean it like that, but I think to be a great doctor, you need to commit yourself to that. I may be wrong. I think there are people that are good at a few things. My mind worked so like I wanted to be the best I could be. I wanted to, if I heard something, I wanted to be able to do it. Or if I knew like, oh, I can't do it, but I could take something from it and apply it. And so, time became and I was gonna, they wanted me to be a pilot in the army, and I kind of signed off on that because I knew it's like 7 years minimum, and you know. But I completed my army service at the age of 16. Actually, this was a big thing for me. There was a band that was chosen of 5 male singers and 5 female singers from all of Israel through the Scouts Association to come to the States and perform a tour of like 4 months in 30
Oh
states.
wow.
And I'm like, wasn't sure. And then I'm like, again, I was starting to be into BB King, Albert King because of that connection. And like, I have to go, not only to, you know, they were like explaining about Israel and, kind of showing the world, showing the U.S. that,
Sure.
it's not just a bunch of 2 camels in the desert. That's what it was known as in '94. They
Yeah.
were like, you have to change the conception. I'm like, okay. But the music was big and I could sing and tour. And it was like tons of shows every day at churches, Baptist churches, synagogues, sometimes community centers,
Mm.
outdoors. Uh, and it was, again, I was in the music, so I loved it and I did it. And I had a chance to come to the States and see that the liner notes that I was reading is not just liner notes. It is real. You know,
Yeah.
there is a club. They took me to, I came to Memphis and we sang at a church. It was and the choir was so good. I remember like almost tearing up. Then they took me to BB King's club and I see his guitar. To me, it was like a movie. Again, from coming from a little 70 family country town
Yeah.
to see like a highway, Josh, of 5 lanes. I'm like, what is this? I'm like,
Yeah.
it was huge for me. So, and we ran into BB King's tour bus. I was sleeping in the van in the back because we were touring, a real tour. And they tell me, God, wake up. I'm like, what? And we see it's BB King. I'm like, what? And this tour bus with Lucille with the BB King is like past us. And I thought, oh, I couldn't believe it. Just like, what? It's real. Like to me, it was like I just saw. I'm like, what is? I saw a prophet. I didn't know. So, come time for the army, I did do the army, but I couldn't play. Every now and then, I had a little time off, or I would come home on the weekends doing a while and would kind of practice. But I was kind of down. I couldn't, you can't. It wasn't happening as much. So
Yeah.
every now and then there was a show, and I tried to practice. We knew that we had a weekend off, all 3 of us, so we tried to get in something. It was fun. But as soon as the army was over, I was 21. And 12 days later, I got that black strap that I had, the suitcase, stopped at France at my sister's, and was on a plane to Memphis, Tennessee. It was like that. But I have to be honest. I was a little, I wouldn't say scared. I was worried, not of coming, of 3 years. I felt like maybe something had changed. I didn't feel like the fire was as big as, and I was like,
Interesting.
I looking back, I almost didn't do it, and I went on faith, but you loved it so much you can't. Don't let the time that you couldn't touch it all the time. Said, try it, jump, and I went. Flew to Memphis, and within the first day, I see somebody playing in the street, and he was still a trumpet player. They used to be instead of the King Palace. You probably remember that trumpet player. He was there all the time. He played on the sidewalk with a little backing track. And I
Yeah.
thought he was so good. He passed a few years ago because I went to Memphis and I saw they had a big poster of him on the window.
Yeah.
Gosh, I used to sit on the
What
curb
was his
like
name?
this. I don't remember. I'm sure I can find out now with the internet.
Yeah.
And I didn't like all of a sudden seeing Josh that you could. To me, a concert was like seeing Eric Clapton at Wembley Stadium,
Sure.
seeing
Yeah.
Queen. And I could not go to clubs. One time, I went to like a club in a kibbutz, and there was a band playing. I'm like, wow. But coming to Memphis and then Chicago and to LA and seeing that it's wow, like there's music being played every night. People are playing it every. I thought
Yeah.
you need to be BB King at the Brigo or Albert King at the Fillmore West
Yeah.
or Aretha or Ray Charles in front of. I did not know that there was something. I shouldn't say less popular, less in volume, performing less in these type of performance. So
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
this live, I was kind of shocked, and the streets, on the bus. I used to take the bus from like Germantown, Tennessee, to friends used to let me stay at their place. I was very shy, so I wouldn't talk much. I walked miles to get from place to place because I was a little worried. Should I hitchhike? I didn't know about what do I do. So I just walked, listen to music, kind of wander off. Then I would get to a place, see somebody play or look out the window, you know, and I was aware of things. My parents showed me a lot of things, and being a younger brother, you learn a lot from your bigger brothers and sisters. But I was kind of naive and shy, and didn't know. All of a sudden you see certain things: people drinking, people get high,
Yeah.
fighting in the street. Uh, you know, X-rated clubs in front of you. If I'm heading to New Orleans, and I'm like, girls half
Yeah.
naked, and I'm like, I wasn't that. I was still. It was different times, and I came from a more from a country town. So seeing
Yeah.
it all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like here where you could touch it and smell it, I'm like, whoa, that's that's
Well,
it's
yeah. Certainly culture shock to some degree. I mean, without
yeah, a
question.
little bit. I knew about it from movies and from things, but having it like could touch you, was like, whoa, that's cool.
So, what were okay? So, I mean, that's a leap of faith, obviously, to just get out of the army and go to Memphis and not have any idea what you're gonna do. When you get
Yeah.
there or anything like that. What's the first stuff that you work your way into? Like, what's the first musical situations you get yourself into?
So you asked if my parents were worried. They were, but also when I was so made up my mind and I'm buying my tickets and they are helping me do everything, they were like really proud. So they didn't like make me feel like, oh, you should not. Mother said, no, it would be good if you have something to land on, to build on, and you go to school, take advantage of it. But when she saw me, I let on know from my brothers, but she also told me, I'm proud of you. You believe in something and you are great. And you can do anything that you want.
Mm,
Keep that, do it. She was like so proud. And my father too. And then when they saw me perform, in Europe on tour, they came to see me in the States, they were so proud, the stuff that
yeah.
shit stuff. And so they always encouraged me. There was never you should not play. But they like play, be the best, but have something else to fall back on it. They always
Sure.
wanted me to do it. So um what was the first thing I felt? Um First, I was fortunate to have people that opened their home to me and gave me a place to crash, which is, it's big when you only have a guitar and a suitcase and you don't know anybody, but anybody.
Yeah.
It was a big thing. And then could be that gentleman playing the trumpet, could be taking a bus on Beale Street, could be taking a bus and hearing a Stevie Wonder group that you would not hear in Israel too much. And it felt right. I met I don't remember his name. He took me in an old Buick, an orange with black top. He was like, he liked me. He had an A-track. And he took me to see other than the Beale Street clubs. I wasn't feeling it much for some reason. That trumpet player I was, but I shouldn't use the word touristic because I didn't know even know what he was. I was shocked by what was playing.
Yeah.
But by that time, I was already, I listened to T-Bone Walker and Albert Collins, and I was heavy into Albert King, which he's still into today, but
Yeah.
and BB King. So I did not hear that. Oh, Ray Charles. I heard like other things, and I'm like, why don't they play this? Why don't I
Yeah.
play like the record? And I wanted to. I was kind of. There was a record store on Beale Street. It's still there. I picked up a Get Mouth Brown CD, and I was like, whoa, what is this? I could start seeing connections. Another T-Bone Walker collection that I couldn't, that I was like, whoa, Imperial Science. I ate it up, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, I could start seeing. That's why I read the B.B. King season as an influence, you know, with Stevie Ray Vaughan and Albert King. That also, I'm like, whoa. So I dove really, really, really deep into Albert King, like almost put everything I had aside and like dove into that. But in Memphis, it was a lot of experiences, not maybe musical. I would sit by the river for hours because I was kind of alone and take the guitar out. I took it with me everywhere because that's all I had, and kind of
Right.
figured out things about, oh, maybe I could play slide like this. Because before it always sounded bad when I tried to play slide. So then one time that guy, the friend of mine, took me to a place called Wild Bills in Memphis. I don't think it's there anymore. And the band let me sit in. I think it was North Memphis. And said he plays, let him play. And I was shy, I wore like a hat tilted, and I played. And so you can sing too. I'm like, yeah, I can sing. I was shy, and I did like the rocks is my pillow, the cold ground is my bed. I remember that. The Albert King number. And they loved it. Man, the place stood up. They offered me a gig, and I'm like, but I have it. And I had a bus ticket for the next day to go to New Orleans, but I decided to travel. Like, I don't know if I should travel. I was in the army for 3 years now. I was in school, so I should see things. But that one song that I played that people, applaud and they told me I was good, Josh, it carried me through a lot of bad times. Not bad times, but I didn't know anybody, so I didn't have any opportunities. But that one that I had, I'm like, hey, I played one song. They offered me a gig every Saturday night. I could support myself. People like what I did. So, you play for yourself and you should know when you're good and when you're not. But
Yeah.
sometimes that little pat on the shoulder goes a long way when you're by yourself. To me, it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see you saying that some people offer you encouragement too, and you thank him for that.
All the
So
time. Yeah.
it goes a long way, especially when you are starting out and want some validation to know that you said that was a big leap of faith. It was. So that little bit of, man, you're really good. I'm like,
Well,
wow,
yeah. I
thank
mean, I
you.
can't imagine traveling all the way, halfway across the world. Which I mean, to us now, it's we love guitar, we love blues. This is our life, but to a young kid from a village in Israel, in the
Yeah,
country, to come to America and play the blues and have
yeah.
anybody, now you've been here long enough, but it's like that the first time you get up and play and people do anything for you, you feel like you're gonna make it. You know what I mean? Like
That's exactly what it was.
yeah,
Because look, there were many a days that I'm like, man, you miss your parents. I miss my family, my friends. I didn't know, again, nobody. So I'm like, other than the sheer joy I got from squeezing a note and hearing it come back to me, it
yeah,
saved me. I read you had a post that said, man, I don't know, it's probably, I never did something as much as sitting in a room by myself with an unplugged guitar. I saw it and I'm like, amen. It's
never,
truth.
dude. There's nothing I've spent more hours doing than sitting on
I
the edge of the bed or the couch or the chair, just playing a guitar unplugged by myself. Like
I'm the same. I said, I read it. I said, amen. This is,
yeah,
so, but getting that pat that night at Wild Bills were like, they so like, man, you're great. They only want to talk to you. Can you be here with the house band every Saturday night? Man, I felt like I was Ralph Macchio at CrossFit. I'm like, nobody could touch me. Nobody could touch. I feel like, I'm not, wait a minute. I'm like 7'6" now.
yeah,
So then when I took a bus to New Orleans the next day, and all those experiences were huge for me, because again, it stopped overnight. We had to wait a few hours in Baton Rouge. And all these places were so instrumental. I read in liner notes of records about these places. And again, there was no internet much. So I had to go to the big city in Israel to try to get a CD. Josh, they didn't have it. They were like, we can order to you, come a month later. Okay. That was my thing. They called me a month later and said, we have that Albert King double Those
Yeah.
are the Albuquerque. So coming through, I remember seeing we passed through Mississippi, and I was so moved because I'm like, oh, I knew that BB King is from there. I knew that Albert
Yeah.
King is from there, and I see Hazelhurst, Mississippi. I'm like, what? I read the Robert Johnson. I knew that he was born there. So those little things, passing in some footsteps of people that were huge for me, that I learned how to play from listening to them,
Yeah.
gave
Yeah.
me another boost. Then somebody hears me and said, wow, you're good. And then I spent some time in New Orleans. It was wild, and I was young out of the army, and I could see myself heading the wrong way. I could see, you know, bad clubs, X-rated venues, things like that. I was drinking there. If you know me now, I know that every now and then I have a glass of wine or beer. But then I would enjoy having a little, little
Yeah.
bourbon. And I'm like, maybe I was trying to step into character, knowing that the people I listened to was doing it too. But I did it and enjoyed it, and I could tell that it's probably, again, not having somebody to keep an eye on me. Something told me to keep moving. So
Yeah.
I stayed there a while, and I loved it. I love New Orleans, and who knows what the future may hold. But at that time of my life, 21-year-old kid getting out of the army, out of school, I kept traveling, trying to see places and look for opportunities.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
So, I mean, how long of a period of time are we talking about between Memphis, New Orleans, and
Not,
wherever, all the traveling? How
it
long is
looks
that?
it looks long, but it's only a couple of months. So
Yeah.
that's what it
Okay.
was. Maybe even less. It wasn't like, because if I would have sat there, I probably would have had the gig. I probably would have started building. It wasn't that long, and again, I was very shy. But by the time I came here, I think it was 2 months, Josh. It couldn't have been more than that. Of
Yeah.
altogether, a month and a half, two. Because when I came here, within 2 weeks, I got a first gig and things started rolling.
Mm.
But those experiences in those cities gave me some more confidence. So I'm sure if I would have came, I think about it often. You could have stayed in Memphis. Maybe it would have been better. Or New Orleans, because a lot of my music maybe is more suitable to those areas. But I don't know. That's what happened. Not everything is about music. That's another thing I realized then. Growing too musically has to do a lot. It had to do a lot for me with life experiences, not just with chops,
Yeah.
on my voice. So it was probably a couple of months, and then I took a train, an MTAC train from New Orleans to Chicago.
Yeah. And, I mean, so when you got to Chicago, it wasn't winter, was it?
I would have been in LA by now if it was winter. No, it was summer. It was June. So I'm
Yeah.
like, whoa. It was a little gray. I remember getting out of Union Station and thinking, whoa, it's a little gray. But it was warm, and there was the Chicago Blues Fest just a week later. And I
Okay.
remember they were like, and I think Otis Rush was there. Chuck, there were some names that I was like, what? I can see, And I remember walking and seeing Otis Rush. He bumped into me, I think, and I'm looking, and I'm like, oh my goodness,
Wow.
this is Otis Rush. Then I walked into Blues Etc. was open. I walked there one night, and he was shooting pool with his wife. Remember who I am then. I'm a kid that saw him on Door to Door with Albert King. I'm like, this is Otis Rush. This is the Otis Rush that you heard all your love, I miss loving. And he invited me. And they're like, can you shoot? And I would shoot pool a lot then. I would drink and shoot pool. I would go to just shoot pool sometimes with a guitar and all that. And we shot pool together, and he ordered a pizza, him and his wife. And I finished the night thinking, Josh, I'm like, maybe I should stay here. Because what's going on, And I came to some jam on the train. Somebody told me that there's some jam sessions at Buddy Guy's Club at Rose's Lounge. They told me the days that I went to these places. Again, I was so shy. I came with the guitar, but they asked me, do you play? I'm like, yeah, I play. But I just wanted to listen. I felt there's so much I wanted to learn. Being not from there and seeing people play and do things on stage that I did not know. So I just sat and listened a lot, tried to learn that way.
Right. Man, so I mean, and I know slightly, how it happens. You finally start sitting in at these things, and this guy asks you to play this gig, and this guy asks you to
Exactly.
play that gig, and things happen, and you next thing you know, you live in Chicago. You just you're staying.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
when when did so what'd your parents think when you moved that quickly? You call home and be like, "I'm in Memphis. I'm in New Orleans. I'm in Chicago." You know.
They knew. You know, one thing about them before they passed, my mother made sure she called me daily, which by then was a huge thing because it was
Yeah.
expensive. You know, it wasn't
Yeah.
to call was, but she called me daily and woke me up. I miss it dearly till today. You know, so I still sometimes wait on that call. It's been 20 years since they passed away,
Sure.
but they knew, and I wanted. They saw that I was a little down, that I wanted to move. Things wouldn't happen. You know, I don't know. Maybe I had a dream in my mind. I liked it. I could see that I was working through it, but I think they knew because a lot of people from Israel, when they get out of the army, they want to travel. Maybe it's the confinement, knowing that you are not free, that you went to school, you stayed with your parents, that you did army, and you want to just see a little bit of something. So for me, that was the scene. I have to tell you something. As you are calling me from LA, I wanted to go to LA before I knew about Chicago. And there
Mm.
was somebody I called, a friend of family, and I thought maybe if I asked, is there a scene? Is there? I'm not really sure. I do that, and like, okay. And the people in Chicago, through my uncle, which is really a second cousin, he knew people here that became like family to me. They were looking for some help and offered to open the house. I really wanted to go to LA. I don't know why. The movies, I didn't know much about the music, but between us, I did not know much about the music in Chicago either. You know,
Mm.
I knew that Ray Charles was from Florida and lived in LA. I knew that Hollywood and some of the music business then was in LA. I didn't know it was in Chicago. I knew BB and Albert and the New Orleans, the Southern musicians were in the South. That whole people don't realize that about me, but that I knew T-Bone was in Texas and Lightning Hopkins, and I knew that Stevie Ray Vaughan was from Texas too. But Chicago, I know it's now I know, but I did not know that whole scene of Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Freddie King's not true because he's Texan, but he made it hits here. You know, Freddie
Yeah.
King, Magic Sam. I did not realize how vibrant the Chicago scene was. And even if you go backwards to Louis Jordan, Louis Armstrong cutting his famous hits actually in Chicago, he was a big jazz mecca in the 20s and 30s. I did not realize it. I did not know enough. And I wanted to go to LA, but again, I was kind of tired after a few months, not knowing what I'm going and crashing at this place and crashing. So I had an invite
Yeah.
from people that offered to open the house to me in Chicago and help them with their children, with their family. And they became till today, they're like family to me. You know? So
Yeah.
this was the toss up, and I came here. My mother thought it was great. Again, that's the support I said earlier. She was really like proud of me. She was not worried because I shared it with them. They knew, you know. I told them, I think I
Yeah.
want to do this. I think I want to do that. So
Nice. Nice. Well, I mean, so okay, you're staying with family, you're helping them with their kids, you're going out probably most nights, going to jams
every night, man.
every night. Yeah, because you have to. Um, when do the gigs become regular? Like when do you get your own place? When do all that type of stuff?
It took a minute. Only a couple of weeks into it, I got a first gig for the people that don't play or want to take a chance. So I come in and they ask me, man, you sound again. I said one song, you sound great. It was Lil Matt Simmons and Aaron Burke. A little Aaron Burton was the bass player for Albert Collins' Ice Picking record. I
Mhm.
was like, those little things made me, you know,
Yeah.
say like, whoa, you know. So they offered me a gig. Do you have an amp? Yeah, I did not have an amp. Do you have a car? Yeah, of course. No, the people I was staying with, Daniel and Miriam, they let me borrow their car. The
Yeah.
next day I wake up in the morning, I need to find a car. They helped me. I find an old, used Buick, let's say, Buick Century, a gray one that broke down every night on the highway. But never mind, that's a different story. And I found an amp, a Fender tube amp. To me, was like, wow, I can't believe I just bought a Fender amp. In Israel, it was so expensive. I had one, but the simple one, and all of a sudden, it's a lot more accessible. It's easier, it's cheaper here too. So I took the gig. One became two, two became three. Another gig offered. Then Willie Kent hears about me and we become close shortly after. And he tells me every night you're not working because he heard me play. So he knew that I'm playing. And I heard him and I thought it was great. He said, "Come see me every time you're not playing, I'll call you up, sit in with me." So he kind of started getting me ready. And a couple of months into it, Josh, I was like, they have gigs, they have this or that, and it's starting to happen. Probably a couple of months, but I had a phone call that my father was diagnosed with cancer, and it's not looking good. It needs to go into surgery, and I tell everybody around me, I said, "I'm leaving things here, and I'm going." So I went to take care of it. Again, I'm the youngest, and I didn't have a family at the time, so I wanted to spend my time helping at home. So I took months off, like 3, 4 months, and I left my things here. I just took my guitar and I just went, took care of my father, took him to treatments and stuff. And sadly, around the same time, my mother was diagnosed with cancer as well. So they both were going through it. And my father passed. We couldn't do anything. And then my mother in a short period of time. So I'm like, what am I doing now? I lost both of them within 10 months. It was really hard. Talking back at it was, I didn't know. Again, I didn't have my brothers and sisters had families. I was by myself.
Right.
So I got a phone call from Willie while my father was sick. He said, "Hey, I told you I have room for you. I want you to join the band." What? I told my mother, and she was like, "Your father is stable. You should go. We are okay. There's more family here." And I went. And another thing, they encouraged me. They're like, "You work for it. You should go get it." I
Yeah.
came back and I joined the Willie Kent and the Gents. And then my first shows, 4 straight nights, my hands were bleeding the night before. It's not anymore sitting in the room and playing great for an hour, 2, 6. It's live on stage. I remember playing in the club from 9 to 1:30.
Mm.
4 straight nights. I could not move by Monday. And Willie Kent was working like 300 nights a year. It was, but again, in Israel, it started getting worse with my parents. So I left the band and I told Willie, and he was a gentleman. Since then, he passed away from cancer too. People know in 2006, but my parents, it was 2002. It was at the very beginning, 2001. It was 2001 or 2000. I don't know. Sorry about that. So I went and took care of him, and I left the band, and I told Willie, and he said, "You're doing the right thing." He said, "But your spot is yours." And again, I thought, yeah, but I'm not sure. But there will be people that were playing for you. But as soon as you tell me you're coming back, it's yours. And they both passed. Sadly, I was with them for a long time, maybe 9 months until that happened. And then I lost them both. And I said, I'm going back, I'm taking the chance on me. And I came back and Willie left the spot for me. And he told the other guitar players, "Thank you for helping out. You guys back." And I just buried myself in playing, Josh. I did not want to hear anything else. All I wanted to do was play the guitar and sing. At this time, moving to Chicago for some reason, Ray Charles became a huge influence and a mentor to me. I felt like he knew what I was living.
Uh-huh.
And my musical horizons kind of really broadened up. And I started figuring out things that either I forgot as a musician because of the guitar consumed me,
Yeah.
or I started putting one and one together and seeing how I can make something for myself.
Yeah. Man, wow. All right.
It
So
was a lot of information. I'm sorry, my answers are long, but you asking me the questions that triggered these answers.
no, no. So I didn't know all this stuff about, I didn't know the whole
Yeah.
story. So okay, so you're playing with Willie. And like you said, when you start finally playing like that many shows, that many hours, things change really quickly. You get so much better so fast, like
Yeah.
so just every night it's like a new you reach a new level of confidence, of ability, of all those things.
Yeah.
And when do you start thinking about doing, your own stuff, like your own records, your own music, maybe writing tunes? When does that start to become an idea even.
If I regret something, which I should not, because I accomplished other things, and I'm sure that it helped me shape.
Sure.
I had my own band when I was 13. I was
Uh,
the singer. I was writing songs. I was When I dove deep into the blues, I already played a lot of different. I played music. I don't believe in styles. You know that. You and I talk about
yeah.
this much, but I kind of like put the guitar up front for a while and left my singing to the side and left music to the side. Even I shouldn't say that. I got in to be a little bit of a purist for a short while,
Yeah.
and maybe I don't regret it, but and I don't regret being a member of Work Into the Gents, but I would get since the first show, do your own thing. Even venues like, why are you not here, book? And I'm like the loyal type, especially then when in my younger days, and I was very shy then. Like people don't realize when I say it now. You see me on the clip and you think, wow, he's like, man, I would bet Josh, I did not speak to the band 6 months to really get in the chance. And I would be like, hey, how you doing? I would have my drink and play and be so quiet because I felt like I need to learn, you know? I
Hmm.
didn't want to show off. I just wanted to learn, to observe, to be better, you know? I did not know then that, man, you were pretty good. And what he told me, you're pretty good. You can do your thing. You're gonna do your thing. So he let me sing every night. I would open the shows and he backed me up on bass, you know? For some reason, and I can't explain why, Josh. Maybe it's losing my parents. Maybe I needed a little hand to kind of watch over me.
Hmm.
And I kind of, I shouldn't say regret. I probably should have uh, just did my thing, you know, because I got tons better. I'm not trying to say like I think I was good, but you know, I bet you when you hear your own stuff, Josh, the feel when you were 12 and started, or 5, you started earlier than me on the guitar. Right? You started really, really
Oh
early.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The
6. Yeah.
feel is not that deep, right? Very after a few months, you can identify that it was you. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah. I mean, when I listen, I can. Yeah. Certainly, I can hear myself in there. You know what I mean? But you, I have so much recording of myself as a kid because I was playing so many gigs that when I look at it now, I see just the progression. It was like literally each
That's
month
not
I
bad.
felt like a different player. You know what I mean? Like I was growing so much so quickly.
That's
But I was
that's
lucky
great.
that I had so many gigs. Like I played a lot of gigs as a really young kid.
I hear that you always say that. I started later on. I had a lot of rehearsals with the band that were as important, and we would put up this project like gigs for 500 people, and people would come in the country. The whole surrounding area would come.
Right.
So it was shows, but it wasn't like here nightly. It wasn't like the same thing as in the States. That's why I'm like, what? You can't
Yeah.
play every night for a live audience. My first show with Willie, somebody came through $100 bill. Willie looked at me. I'm like, that was more than the gig for me.
Yeah.
Through my first solo. Another hunt. I think there was like $800 bills on the floor. And Willie looks at me like this, and I look at him, and I'm thinking like, man, I'm gonna buy a guitar. Like I can afford. What is this? I never made that much money. You know, we split tips later, even though Willie was like, "Take it. This one was you.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't the band." But things like I don't know. I got a lot better, but I felt like I think the musicianship and the touch, the personal touch, I almost think you are born with it. And at the very end, I think that's what gets to the. It's funny. That's what will move something in the people. So maybe I should have probably did my thing sooner, but I think it had a lot to do. It wouldn't have happened if I would have stayed in Israel. I was like
Right.
the front guy. I never would have. I would play for anybody who wanted to. I love to play, but here I felt like, man, I came from the outside. I need to be quiet and observe and
Hmm.
soak it in. So I think I took a while. That's probably more than other people would have. And it has to do with personal character. I was very loyal, I think, to Willie, to the point that I didn't want to take other gigs, Josh, with other people.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was offered, and I said, no, I'm a member of the band. I was like proud to be his right hand man, and he made me the band leader. So I would pay the band. I was really young, and the band members, I was 22, 23. The band was 60, the next to me. So
Yeah.
I could pick up a lot of things, and I started giving them, you know, arranging musically about certain things. So I felt like, hey, I'm getting better. And all the crowd thing, playing at a club, seeing people sweat, dance, what moves them, you know,
Yeah.
developing a certain amount of how to move people on the mic, not within the song, between songs, you know.
Hmm.
So, and then he died in March 1st, 2006, and they wanted me to be the leader of the Gents, of Willie Kinston and Gents, and I said, no, I need to say that I can't, he's not here. It felt too weird, and I started, I actually, between us, I never said that. I took time off. I didn't want to play at that time. Out. And that did I didn't want to play. I didn't want to play out. It was too weird. And Willie and I were close, losing my parents came back to me. It was a lot of loss in my
Yeah.
life. So, and to cancer, which is a heavy, I did the treatments. I'm the one that took him and took care of him.
Yeah.
Both my parents. And so I'm like, I'm not going to play. So I got just a regular gig doing maintenance or something, learning craft, doing electricity and painting and something to pay for my rent.
Yeah.
And the Ray Charles stayed and turned into a Jimmy McGriff that turned into oh, what's that song? I got introduced to Deep Blue Organ Trio here, and Henry Johnson, Bobby Broom on guitar, and Henry Johnson jazz guitars, and Chris Foreman and Greg Rockin. And Chris Foreman, the organist, became
Yeah.
close friends of mine. And he told me, listen to Teach Me Tonight, I think you like it. I could tell that you playing more than, or you want to play more than just the blues that you play in the band.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so I heard it. And it kind of brought me back to the things that I may have played on clarinet or heard as a child,
Sure.
or some of that Ray Charles music that I never really put my fingers on much. So there was the last few years of Willie Kent in the band, my style started changing from that first 2 years that I was like, Albert King, BB King, Albert Collins. Albert King, BB King, Albert. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
I'm running something. I'm doing something different. And it became, I around that time I almost thought about maybe not playing guitar. And when my band started as a pianist, I loved Ray so much, and like maybe there won't be a guitar. So I started teaching myself to play. I got a Fender Rhodes, started teaching myself to play, and then I heard Wes Montgomery doing one of those stanzas, and I'm like, wow, that's the first time I really heard him. Like, there's a whole lot. I felt like the whole other side to the guitar that I felt that I could bring in, like I brought B.B. King or Albert King or Clapton years before, and I'm like, I should not stop. Like, not that I thought that I had it all, but this moved me in a certain way that I'm like, I can combine this with the way I bend and make it sing. How does it do? What is it? And I started again diving in, doing those.
I didn't realize it was that much later for you when you started listening to that stuff.
Yes, it was. With Willie Kent, I started, I think the day job, let me correct myself. I got him the last year of his life when he was diagnosed, and I kind of got tired of playing it. I wanted to start my own thing and even talk to him about it. But he was sick, and it was the wrong time to leave him hanging.
Yeah.
So I stayed, but in my off time, Ray became huge. Errol Garner, the pianist, became enormous influence on me. So people ask me sometimes, you do all those passages before next song to introduce it. Is this because of this guy? I'm like, no, it's because of him. That's why I got so different. Errol Garner, Jim McGriff, Wes Montgomery, Sonny Rollins, I started hearing it. And what was my introduction? Lee Morgan became a big, with Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. They became big for me because I would take a song that I said, wow, this is a great song, which knowing back was a standard. But what I would do, Jazz, I would look for like different versions that moved me. And I made myself like a CD to drive to work at 5 a.m. of like 5 songs back to back. Teach Me Tonight. Chris Settleman would like it. So I had Errol Garner instrumental, Shaka Khan version, Dinah Washington, which was the original, Nat King Cole, and all of a sudden, Sonny Rollins played a version of a song, and I'm like, this is great, this is great, this is great. And I could tell, okay, this is my favorite. But what does he do there? And I started like while driving and listening. I got it in, and I would try to figure out things. So it was later on that I really found out how to put it on the guitar. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Well, I mean, and you know, it's a big part of what makes you you now is the balance of all the styles and all the things. And I mean, obviously, that's a big part of what makes all of us
Yeah. Right.
unique. You know, is the blending of our influences. But man, you do such a good job of connecting the dots between someone who's done his homework and really knows the blues history, someone who has listened to the right jazz stuff and knows, you know, the important things there,
Right.
and has listened to the soul and R&B and all that stuff. And I think that's why you're one of the most unique guys on the scene these days. You
Man,
know.
thanks. Hearing it from you is like it's a bigger tap on the shoulder than the Memphis thing when I was 21.
Ah.
But it's the thing is, it's funny. So some people, the soul side and the more pop side and the rock side. I think I put this aside for a while kind of being straight in. But when
Sure.
I got the turntable here at the house, so I could do the test pressing for the album that you co-produced with me. We'll get to that, I'm sure. Is there's not one blues or jazz record here. None. Like there's Bee Gees. I'm telling you the truth. There's that Michael Jackson Thriller. That was the first record I bought to live my childhood, and the
Yeah.
Bowie Let's Dance, and like stuff like I don't know Stevie Dan or Dire Straits,
Sure.
because I felt like I immersed myself in that so long that I wanted to like go back to basic or more for sound purposes. But yeah, I mean, so Otis Redding, I heard a lot. Josh, too. I forgot. I heard Otis Redding and Wilson Pickett.
Yeah.
After the Elvis phase at like junior school, because my parents, Elvis and Buddy Holly and Richie Valens, those things that for some reason they were still popular in Israel because they get it way, at least then, they got it way after the States.
Yeah.
So then it became what was popular, and I kind of got into the soul side. So I was aware of Wilson Pickett and Otis Redding. And when I first came to Chicago, there was a period that I heard Otis Redding day in and day out, you know.
Right.
And also figuring out that huge connection of like the same guys that played behind Albert King that I was like loving it and it changed me. Those were
Oh,
the same guys that were playing behind Otis Redding.
yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, that was mind blowing. You know what I
and
mean?
I said, to myself, I said, I knew it because the soul is the same. The genres are not really genres. The soul of the music is one. So in Stevie Wonder, and then in Chicago, Johnny Guitar Watson became big. I all of a sudden figured out, hey, it's not only Ray Charles, others did that thing too.
Yeah. Oh, dude, let's jump into the 10 questions because I don't want to
Oh,
have to. I don't want to have to cut us off because I got to do another one at
oh
11.
let's. Sorry, we didn't even talk about the record. I'm sorry.
I know. We'll get. Well,
Okay,
man, maybe we should just do a part two.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Was it boring? Did I answer too long of a question?
No, 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 not at all. I
Okay.
scheduled them too close together.
It was me though. It was the technique. It was that I didn't think about the headset. I should have just plugged it
It
in right
doesn't
away.
matter. Doesn't matter. But let's get into the 10 questions.
Let's do it.
All right, number one. When you started learning and playing, what was the first lick or thing that you learned that kind of the feeling when you finally learn something you've been listening to? It's like you can't believe you figured that out. Do you remember what was the first thing you
But it
figured
was
out on guitar?
first of all, I'm gonna be really basic. It's getting like a G chord or a chord that's all clean. That was
Yeah.
like oh my goodness, it happened. At the that you're talking very beginning. But something that moved me was like
Yeah.
when I did this, I was like, oh, look out.
Oh,
I'm like, oh my god, I'm done. I'm like, whoo, watch out. But
yeah.
this will be it. Before Sunshine of My Love and before the Layla. Before the Layla. It was cocaine.
Interesting. Man, that's such a great song, but it is that feeling when you've listened to this song a million times and then all of a sudden it comes out of your hands. It's like, yeah,
Man, oh, when you played it, I remember playing it with the record and not even hearing it. Like, it sounded like the record. And
yeah,
I was so happy. And the first notes, I was like, oh my goodness. It's
yeah.
what it
So
was.
is that also the first solo you ever learned note for note?
Yes,
Cocaine.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
I have to be honest. I don't know if I got it from the beginning to the end, but I got it to the point where it was like I established, you know. So it was that. I just really don't know if it was the whole thing or like a part of it. You know,
Yeah. Interesting.
I don't think you know what between us. I'm not sure if I ever learned solo from the beginning to the end. I usually take like the beginning is what gets me into it, and that part that really gets. And I'm trying to figure out things in between. I always was like that.
So I was the same way. I would learn the first half of the solo,
See,
and
I
then I would
never.
kind of go my own way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because to me, that was the biggest magic trick. Was like, once you were able to improvise at all, that's all I wanted to do. It was like that felt like learning Latin or something. When you could put on a record, and I could find what key it was in and just start playing over it. It was like I couldn't believe I was able to do that. Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you. It's the best. And then you find out every now and then, like a certain line that somebody's doing, you're like, whoa, the way it fits over the change. And then you kind of take that and try to apply it where, make it a
Yeah.
part of you, kind
Yeah. What's the first thing you play every time you pick up a guitar? Do your hands just go somewhere first without
of.
thinking, just automatically?
Probably here, like a like a 13, like down at 13.
Yeah.
Lately, this is what I do. I just did it. I wasn't even thinking about it. There you go.
Yeah.
And like check an octave, play a chord, either minor or major, mostly like a dominant chord,
Yeah.
and play like something on the sixth string to kind of figure out an octave.
Yeah. Is that the same thing like when you first get to the gig and you hit standby to kind of check that everything's working? Probably same thing.
I think so. Sometimes it's this for the tuning to make sure that the E. I think no, I think it's a 13 chord. Just like, yes, it is. Usually it is.
Yeah.
Unless there's something in my mind, if I heard something or like a song that I'm working with, usually I'll be like, I'll be stuck. I'll be stuck. It'll be stuck in me. So that would be what I'm
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then that leads us to this question then. What gets stuck in there the most? Like what key, what style, what song? What do you just hear when you're doing nothing? Like I can't help it. I hear a shuffle all the time. Like all I hear is be that's just what I hear most of the time. It changes sometimes, but if you ask me at a random time what I'm thinking or hearing, it's normally that.
It's a shuffle.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, now I'm stuck on the shuffle because he sang it, but it changes. I have to be honest with you. It changes for me according to what I'm working on. If there's a song that I'm writing or like with the record, it would change too. It wouldn't be one thing in particular.
Mm.
Um, lately, it's somewhat more minor than I have in my life. I'm always a more major.
Interesting.
Lately, it's more minor around that area. And now, and it's weird because it's like more plain chords, like more like just a sound of a plain triad chord, which I
Mhm.
haven't played since I was a teenager until maybe the last record. So
Yeah.
this or a major chord, yeah, maybe something like this, but it changes. And lately, for some reason, around that album time, I think I started hearing more minor sounds, like more variations on the minor notes.
When you first hear a piece of music that you've never heard, though, what's normally like your first instinct? Is it like, are you paying attention to melody or to the groove or you immediately hearing an improvisation over the top? Like a lot of the times I'm hearing improv most of the time. What's the first thing normally for you?
It got to that. I tried to take it away. I tried to go back. It won't be, sadly. I talked to my wife about it. She's great with lyrics, and I'm not as good, even though I know their importance and appreciate it. The melody and the beat and the groove is like those two, according to what's more dominant in the song, I think. What grabs me, if the melody really grabs me right away, I'm like,
Right.
that's usually the thing that floors me, that gets me to want to do that song or want to learn. something similar. But when you think about music, that the melody is secondary, anything James Brown or funk related, really, then the beat gets you too. So I think it's what more dominant within the song, either a melody or a groove will grab me first. And
Right.
sometimes if the harmony is really gorgeous, it could like, but the harmony is nothing without the, no, it will be the melody because the harmony just decorates the melody.
Yes. Man, okay, so we talked about this a little bit, so I maybe know the answer, but when did you feel like you started to find your voice? So, like what I associate with you is what we were talking about earlier, the mix of all those things. And also there's a very pure thing about your playing. It sounds like you're very, very clear in your head of what you want to play and what you hear. It always sounds very decisive, which is cool. I
Thank you.
like that.
Thank
Well,
you.
but do you remember like making conscious choices like, hey, this sounds more like unique and more like my thing. I should do more of this.
I never made that. I never thought about it, Josh.
Okay.
Never, never. You know what? I should not say never. Before the last record, before the one before Joy's coming, I
Uh,
remember sitting and talking to Tom Vitus, the piano player, also co-produced it. He and I remember telling him, I said I have to say it out loud, so it'll be like I mean it, so it records. I don't want to play over all the changes. He said, "What you mean?" I said I want to go back to melody more. And I know most people's telling me and complimenting me, "God, your solos always sound like a melody." But when I'm sitting at the house sometimes, Josh, and when you're trying to get better, it means that if I hear something, I want to work on it so it can become
yeah.
me. And I remember saying, don't, don't just play over all change whatever you want to, whatever needs to be played on the change. Don't do that. You know, make sure close your eyes. The whole album is original. Make sure that the song comes out, that the melody comes out. So I wanted to go back to that. So when I was not as good technically or knowing what I'm playing,
Sure.
there's a certain purity of playing maybe simpler, but it's all you know. So you put everything into it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I felt like I wanted to do all these things at times, but I had to not put a rein. It's not true. Like let let the music speak more to itself. But and I never and pretty much play the song, which I think is what I do mostly.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'm guilty as well as, hey, but this can be done. Let's do it. And it's not really the right approach. But I never went and said consciously I should do. I think I let my what
Yeah.
I feel mostly dictate where I want to go.
Which is not, I mean, you have to kind of reach that point because, we're always working on this new stuff and you want to use this new stuff. You want to you learn something, you want to use it. So you build up this vocabulary of
Yes,
knowledge and ideas and facility and technique. But then eventually you realize, well, it's still all in service of playing a solo that feels as good and is as memorable as what Albert King does or BB King does. you know, you could still say something that simple and that memorable, even with all this knowledge and technique.
that's the thing. It's not we talking. I don't have to use all my words and my letters into one. That's exactly what it is. You did it
Exactly.
through the night. The song from yours that I love so much that I play. You sound like you. You play not different. Maybe you don't do everything you're not into. You don't need to. That's the point. That's kind of what I think. It's the touch. The individual touch goes
Yeah.
farther than the technique. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, number 6. What do you consider your biggest weakness on the guitar, man?
Wow. Are you gonna call me out like that and have me tell me my weaknesses?
Because I
No,
want to know what everybody, we all have
no,
things that
you're
we
right.
wish we were better at.
Uh, I don't think. Well, since I stopped playing with the pick, but you know what? Not true. I don't think I'm the fast. I don't think I'm the fastest gun in the West. You know, I'm not. I'm not that fast of a player. Uh, I could do up tempo swings the way I want to, but I don't think I'm as That's my weakness. But I have to be. I don't really think that like that too about the
Yeah,
guitar
because it's
and what it
partially
should
a
be doing.
choice as well. It's
Exactly.
partially, yeah. Yeah.
That's what it is. But I had to work when I dumped the pick. When I used to play with the pick at the beginning. When I put it down, I had to work on getting the thumb to be as fast as I wanted to do. And I have to be honest. When I told you when Wes Montgomery was an influence, I was already playing with my thumb. I did not know that he was, but understanding that hey, you can play faster. Don't put yourself down just because. So
Mhm.
maybe I don't think I play very fast, and that will be a weakness of mine. Also, it's a weakness, but also maybe a strength. The fact that I don't use much effects and processing for the guitar. I
Mm.
think there are beautiful things that could be accomplished with it, and I think it's in the way you see the guitar. I don't think it's that So
Yeah,
one is I don't play as fast probably, and second is the processing and other sounds that you can associate with the guitar.
sure, sure. Yeah, but again, that's also partially a choice as well. Well,
You're right.
definitely a choice. Yeah,
You're right.
yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure if you gave me your weakness, it's probably a choice. You could work on it and make it, you know,
Yeah, it's. I mean, yeah. I mean, we
right?
all have. There's a difference sometimes. Not a difference, but at least an understanding of a difference between, a choice and just a complete. I can't possibly do that. You know what I mean? There's plenty of things I could never do, and then there's other things well I could do, but I just don't want to do. You
Right.
know?
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, number 7. Who's a big influence on your guitar playing that people would maybe be surprised to hear you say?
I think I said it on the guitar play. I think Errol Garner is the one people would be surprised.
Yeah.
They probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have thought, but I would quote him as one of my biggest influences. Uh, I don't think Ray Charles would be a surprise.
That's not a surprise.
Maybe on the guitar, yeah. On the,
Yeah.
another one, no, none of them will be as a surprise as I think Errol Garner. And it's funny, but Joao Gilberto, the Brazilian,
Oh, okay.
on my
And
music. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Man, Ray. I mean, obviously not a surprise, but Ray was so big for me too, and not just Ray. The whole band, and man, Fathead was huge for me in learning to play anything through changes. Like because he played the simplest stuff, but it was all through the changes, and it was like the beginnings of, oh, what's that? You know what I mean?
yeah,
That was I remember
exactly.
that's some of the most first, very beginning things I ever learned on how
Yeah,
to play. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
The T-Bone Band too. When I talk to you about
yeah,
the Imperial and the Capitol,
yeah.
people ask me when I do like a lesson to somebody or massacre, and I said, "Listen to that." I said, "But I don't." I said, "But don't listen just to Tim and the guitar. Listen to the band. Listen to the piano, the bass, the way they play, the horn players when they take a solo. You're gonna
Yeah.
learn tons from that."
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I tell people all the time when they take a lesson from me and they want to start learning how to play anything more. It's like, man, just go learn the solo from Hard Times or something. You know what I mean? Like, start on something simple like that and just play through those chords. You know?
And
Yeah,
learn play the melody, and make it
yeah.
mean. Yeah, of course, of course.
All right. So here's number 8 that I ask. Everybody has the different answer, but would you rather have a great guitar and a shitty amp on a gig, or a great amp and a bad guitar?
Wow, wow. I have to tell you which one. I can't answer. It depends how crappy they are. I guess really crappy. Both
Well,
are crap.
would the gig be better if you had your guitar and you showed up to play your gig and you had to play through a crate or a JC 120 or
Play
some
guitar.
terrible solid state Marshall,
You
or
said
would
it.
it be better if you had some terrible guitar and a super, a great super, which gig would be better?
The guitar.
Okay, interesting.
I would go for the guitar. You know why? Because of our answer, or even I could just, you know what? If it comes to that, I will bring it all down and walk to the table and play like I played when I practice, and it will sound beautiful to me. I'm
Yeah,
not plugged.
yeah.
I can get the message, but I think you'll be if the guitar stays in tune. I think the other one will work too. I still will sound like myself. I feel.
Uh huh. Interesting.
So
See, I would take the amp always first.
wow, I'm so really wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't think, again, I think that the gig would be, because I played guitars that were not good, and to make a show work, it's fine, you know. But it works fine. But I also played, man, I did a show at a time period. I left everything and was in Brazil for a while. People didn't even know
Right.
where I was. And I had my guitar, and I played through a PA kit. I didn't have an amp. And at first I was like crying the blues. But this third night, I'm like, wow, it started to sound okay. So I think, I don't, I think I would take my guitar though. It's more, I'm connected
Yeah.
to it.
All right, number 9. What keeps you motivated to continue, improving as a guitar player and as a musician? Like, what keeps you, learning new stuff?
I don't think I can help. I think curiosity, but without even realizing it. The fact that music is always somewhere in me. That all of a sudden I'll hear something, even walking down the street, and like, hey, and it will spark a feeling. What keeps me improving is the feeling. I think it's the feel more than anything else. It sparks something inside, and I want to figure out, or I want to share it with other, and I know that in order to share it with other, I have to first know how to
Yeah.
tell that story. So I think it's the feeling that more than anything, the feeling of music.
I just hope that that never goes away, because it's still every day it drives me something. Yeah, something sparks something. You hear something, an idea, whatever. I just hope that never goes away.
I
Yeah.
know, but I don't think, you know what? I think that I know that you know, by knowing you, and knowing how you as a musician, as a person, when you realize it's not just music, because sometimes we will talk, and we will talk about our families or something, and it'll leave you feeling good, a good feeling. You talk to a friend, it's going to reflect on that. You're going to all of a sudden want to pick up the guitar. So when I realized that, I feel like, I hope so too. You're worried that it never goes away. But when you realize the music is kind of its life, it's a part of life, it can't go away because,
Oh, you're
you
right.
know,
You're right. Like, when I'm in a bad mood, the first thing I want to do, pick up a guitar. When I'm in
and
a
you have
great
an
mood,
anger, you had a different feeling. You're going to explore different things, kind of,
yeah.
right?
But when I'm in a great mood, the first thing I want to do, pick up a guitar because I
You
love to
see
play
what I'm
guitar.
saying? That's
Yeah.
the thing,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
music, or when you know how to, if you learn, I'm trying to channel it to different sides, the guitar, or working on something, or a rig, or sound, or a song, or writing a change, or arranging it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So then, where do you want to be then in 5 years? What's your 5 year plan, man? I know you got other records you want to make, other things you want to do. I know you want to be
Yeah,
out there
yeah,
on the road more, doing your thing.
yeah.
Do you have specific goals in mind? You know?
Yes, I do. I would the re- since I started playing, and I told you I was a Clapton fan, having that 24 nights and knowing about the Royal Albert Hall, it was a place I wanted to play at since I picked up a guitar. A little
Yeah.
ambitious for a 13-year-old, but I can't
Sure.
turn back the hands of time, and it's still here. Having to say that, I know that if I can play there with my music, not just, means that people are enjoying and understanding what
Mhm.
I'm trying to play for them. So playing there, performing at Red Rocks, playing at a theater, or the Red Rocks became one of those too lately. I don't know why, because maybe it's because it's beautiful and a
Well,
venue that I
it's
know is
on my
very
list too. It's I
okay.
wish one day, yeah.
So I'm
I've played
like,
there before, but not playing my music. You know what I mean? It's like
was it
that's
beautiful? Did you love it as much as you thought?
yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah.
That's good. But
But I was
to me,
standing in the background playing rhythm guitar on somebody else's music, and that's great. I loved that part of my life, and I enjoyed it. But I want to be there, like you said, playing
yeah,
my music,
play
and
my
people there
music.
to
Yeah.
hear that.
But
Yeah,
it's at least you made the step going. It's like you got the taste of that. It's good too. And hey, and as much as I do, to doing that, there's a set of skills that very few have as well too. So that's what I would like to headline the tours everywhere in the world, not just in England at the Royal Albert Hall or Red Rocks. And
yeah,
I come into LA and play a big theater where people are coming and they
yeah.
sing and joy is coming, and they ask me to play that song, or they want to hear Devil's Tour, and we cut it like it was, or better than it was recorded, as good as it was
Yeah.
recorded, just a live version.
Yeah.
This is so But the thing is, I also don't too much believe in magic tricks. I do, but I don't. Magic tricks come when you work on your craft. That's when the magic comes. I think that you can seize the moment. That's what I feel. But I think a good manager with a plan to knowing how to get what I'm talking about and put it in action. As someone that did it all myself for my career, other than the wonderful musicians that I met along the way, you know, that if it's band members or the people that, you know, that you associate play with, I think as someone that did it all by myself, booking, managing, and I'm responsible and I'm straight up and I'm honest, there's a team to work with you about things, I think is a wonderful thing, and you can achieve higher goals and you can free yourself to do what you are better at, which is create and work. You're not supposed to be out of the mix, but I think, you know, let's say while I'm playing the show, somebody else could be already booking the next one, and it doesn't have to wait till I get off the gig and having to buy two. That's what I'm so. And I see others. I see, you know,
just a little help.
The scene have changed, I think, since you and I, we similar in ages. You know, the scene have changed. Music worldwide have changed, and the way of doing things. And I see now that a team of working together, it's important to progress and to being able to reach the things that you asked me. Where would I want to be, and where do I see myself in 5 years?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're on the right path, and you know you're making good music, and that hopefully the rest takes care of itself. All right, man, that's it. We reached the end of the 10 questions. So now, man, we got to talk about your record. We got to talk about Joy Is Coming. I was really happy to be involved in this with you and to help you with the record. I know how proud of it you are, and I'm proud of it as well. Tell people about the record who don't know, and if you don't know, please go buy this record. But anyways, come on, talk about the record.
So wait a minute. The first thing before saying how proud I am of it, I'll reach backwards. This is the record, like literally a record, a vinyl record. So it's my first release on vinyl, and it came out like as good as I dreamed it would, which is rare, or even better, you know. So a lot of things I thought, oh, it should be like this.
Yeah.
And you know it, and I'm kind of picky. I all of a sudden like gave in and said, wait a minute, stop holding on to something. It actually is better. Be quiet, roll with things, which is something I wasn't really good about before. So I'm here to publicly, even though I did it online on some posts, say thank you so much, Josh, because it would not have been the same. Really, it would not. Like, I was actually about to post something, you know, the same, like a thank you to you and to Alan. I found a couple of old photos that we were together. So the world kind of stopped while I was at your studio. We were together in LA, and my wife was calling and saying, you remember when we were eating together, come, everything is being closed. You won't be able to come home.
Yeah.
Like, what? But we are mixing, and we were kind of, it was funny because it was just the three of us in a room, and we wouldn't hang out, and we went to eat. We were kind of safe about it. So I tried to explain to her, first of all, there were no real regulations yet because nothing stopped yet.
I mean, that was the very beginning. Like,
you remember it was like, okay, they canceled the mastering session because we couldn't go to master. And hey, Josh, we're done with the record. Instead of flying, I think I'm flying tonight to make sure that I don't get stuck, you know, that I come home to my wife and baby. So, I'm proud of it. It's, I either wrote Only Me or co-wrote either with David Ritz or a couple of the songs with my wife, which it's the first record that I said no covers, no songs by others, no interpretations. It's me. I have to be more intimate and tell my story, you know. So that's the first thing. Second, the arrangements. I was so I'm kind of hands-on. So arranging strings, I never sang with strings, with a real string section before. That's the first. I did it live, but never on a recording session. So with the arranger, we arranged together. The horns I always have in my band, so it was kind of a familiar ground to me. But I was in Chicago, and you know, having Vanessa Bell Armstrong sing with me and having Joe Bonamassa play, but everything kind of, and the stories of the songs, you know. Joy's Coming was written when Sarah, my wife, was pregnant with our daughter, with Rachel. We didn't name her yet. Joy's Coming. She was the joy that would come eventually, you know. So songs like this, even Devil's Toy. I'm talking about temptations, about rough times in New Orleans. Some of the things I told you that I decided that I should get out before something not. A lot of things, and if you listen to the lyrics, it's like everything is kind of it's a mini autobiography of mine, you know. Choices, choosing my wives instead of going places to tour, deciding to stay put and just, you know. So a lot of things happened in my life that led me to relax. You know, I met Sarah, we got married, Rachel, our daughter, was born. Since the record, Sarah was pregnant again, and now we have a baby boy who's it's 12 weeks old now, a little bitty one.
Yeah.
And, you know, so the album is kind of, I feel like it's a part of me, and the sound, I envisioned something in particular, you know, and when I remember calling you and you were like, hey, I have something for you, just, you know, send me a track. And I sent you a track, and you brought Alan Hertz, and you said, what do you think? And you said it's just, I remember it like yesterday, you know, on the phone. I was here with you then, before it was a studio, when it was a back porch. And I told you, you said you only told us, just give me a couple of notes. And I almost didn't say anything because I wanted to see, you know, be quiet, let them work, you know. And I got it back, and I'm like, whoa. So when I had the opportunity, I'm like, this is what I envisioned without even saying anything. So when I have we talked on the phone, and I said, okay, I'm coming. And I remember bringing everything, and we sitting together, and the first day already, you know, I was kind of excited and nervous. And the first day it started sounding so like, whoa. And I asked you, I said, man, how can it sound like this? I wasn't used to it. We didn't even talk, or it was like everything just made sense. It felt right. It was a hang too. We were talking and laughing and eating, you know, and so without you, Josh, and bringing Alan and making the whole side of the production what it was, it would not be what it is as far as I'm concerned. So I cannot thank you enough for that, you know.
Well, you're welcome, really, man, and it's a great record with great tunes, and you play your ass off on it. You sing great on it, and I mean, I remember, you know, we'd obviously even talked about the record before you even recorded the tracks. You telling me what you were gonna do and what you know, the whole process. So I kind of knew what you were gonna do, and then I knew, you know, after you'd recorded the tracks, you sent me like, you know, just to get my opinion on things and things like that,
right.
and so I knew what you wanted, you know, I knew what you wanted to accomplish. And the great thing about Alan is he's very malleable. So, you know, you give him a few words and he'll make it happen. He's a weird guy, but he's incredibly talented.
He was, that's the first time I met him. I remember you saying, hey, I'm bringing in Alan, and we're gonna, and it was just like, you know.
Well, that's the kind of, I mean, you know, it's obvious you know now because you've been here with me. That's the way I work, you know, like I commit very quickly. So I get sure of something and just make a decision and go there, you know? Yeah, no, man, I'm really proud of the record you made. And I'm glad people are digging on it. You know, I think it takes not just, you know, money and passion to make a record. It takes guts, like, to make a record that is what you want to make, you know, and maybe not always just take everybody's advice at hand, to stick to your guns and make the record you wanted to make. And I think you did that, man. You made the record you had inside you and that you wanted to get out and get made, and you should be proud of it.
Thanks, man. You know what? I really am. And every time I think maybe I listen, I put it on and I'm like, nope, it's what it should have been. So I'm like, I'm really happy with it. And usually I'm not. Usually I go back, I'm like, no, I would have done that. Okay, next one. This one I'm really listening to. I'm like, you went for it. And you did it. Like it came out the conviction, the intention. I was really intent. Everything you said it earlier about my playing, and I'm very flattered by it. But here I feel more than any time this was it. I had no doubt, you know. If I had tried something, it was a rehearsal, and I'm like, no, this is gonna be it. And I just went for it. But it just came out like a part of me, you know. So I'm glad we documented it, and it was fun doing. You know, it was. You said about you committing how you work. I remember us talking, and me asking you. I said, Joshua, there's a million options. How do you? And we had the thing. You're like, I've been there, and I recorded tons, and I worked on tons of sessions. Now I just come in. This is what I do, and I remember having a thing in my mind that I said, guy, this is how you play. You should be about everything. So it kind of stuck with me, you know, and like more than you think. And I'm thinking then, since I'm like, no, go for it. Go for an instinct. Think about it. Stay with that instinct. If the thought fit it, and just roll with it. And it's going to be the right thing, you know. So, and this is kind of thing. It's our conversations from the session, you know, but. And also about, you know, it was mixed so well, and I remember you giving me some idea. Things that to me are not small, they're major, even about a tambourine hit, where to stop it, where to come with it. I remember on Devil's Story, and it was dead on, you know, and I'm listening to it. And you know, I went with the first draft of everything. Like the way we put it the first time, I called you then, I said, Josh, because you were the one that took it to mastering. I was in Chicago, you know, with the quarantine. So, and I do not need Josh. It was like, I'm so glad that's how it turned out. And it sounds great. And the mastering, you taking it to the bakery to Eric and having him, you know, cut the lacquers there. Everything is like, the packaging came out great. The sound is gorgeous to me, you know.
Yep.
So lyrics of the songs that we included in the vinyl edition, because everything is kind of real. It's, you know, it's you know, it's like a true story. Like I said, like a chapter of my autobiography.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm looking forward to whatever the next one is, man.
Me too, man. But you know what? Now we talked about the Albert Hall and me getting to it. I did one show of this album, just recently.
I saw, Phil and Natasha.
And they flew. And I was nervous because other than the session, I never, because of the quarantine and the world stopping, I never played these songs live. And all of a sudden, I'm like, yeah, there's an album show. I'm getting the horns. We writing down the string charts for the horns because I couldn't get the string player for a live show. And background vocals, Sarah and Devin, everybody from the record, the whole cast. And I'm like, and I got nervous. I'm like, man, you never performed it live. You need to I had to sit with it, you know? Sit with the lyrics, with the changes, so. And I think live, it's a great show. Like, it worked. When I played it live, I could be honest with you, I was excited. I felt it. I felt the power of the lyrics, the songs, the arrangements, the thoughts of the session, of the mixing session with you and Alan. Everything kind of came while I was singing it, which made it kind of special. And I would love to tour with that record, you know, because I went for something. I played more rock here than I ever did. You know, I told you, I went to my first influences, more to the Clapton, even Sting, stuff that I heard as a child that I never knew. I told you, I dove into the blues a little too deeply earlier. And I feel this is my, not coming out, because I'm always going to play blues. I can't, you know. But this is the first time that I could say with Joy's coming, this is Guy King. You know, and I think the next one, the one after, will follow not stylistically maybe, but as far as the intent and the honesty and just being me and using everything I learned as a vocabulary only, this is what's in. Now it's coming out different after my film. So, you know.
Yeah. Awesome, man. And, you know, everybody, please buy this record.
Man.
We need this support, you know. It's important. And you know, it helps. So every record sold is a big help. You heard him; he's got 2 little kids.
I do. We talked about how I have my hands full.
Yeah, he does have.
A lot of these songs were written when the baby was sleeping with Sarah, and I was on the couch, and I just switched to this. You know, I used to play Telecaster exclusively. There was one Telecaster I used to play, but I wanted to change the sound, and I switched to this guitar at the time. And a lot of the songs were kind of written on the couch late at night by me kind of and ideas playing like this while they were sleeping. Hence the photo on the back. That's like a true photo that we chose to pick,
Yeah,
you know, to choose
it's
for
so
the
good.
session. So yeah, man, but it helps. And I'm selling it off from my site. You know, it's all set up now. It's shipping worldwide. In, in the States, it's really affordable. In Europe too, we actually had units shipped in Europe, so they're ready to be distributed
Nice.
to people. So
Well, the links to all of that, all of Guy King's everything, will be in the description of
man,
this video. So please support him. You know, dude, thank you for doing this, man, for doing this interview.
thank you for having me. I apologize to the listeners. I know you said it was cool, but my answers sometimes were longer than I ever spoke because you get
Don't
it's.
apologize.
I'm not apologizing, but I seem to have elaborated and went kind of personal because you're a friend, and you know you mean a lot to me as a person, as a friend, as a musician and guitarist. It's a sure thing. I'm not everybody knows what you are and who you are, Josh, but as a friend and a person. So you asked me some things, and what specifically when you talked about my parents, that I don't think I ever spoke about other than my wife or close friends they know.
Yeah.
But when I'm speaking to you, it's like I can't just tell you, oh, they passed when I was younger and everything. It was a deep thing. Meeting my wife and having the children was a deep thing, and it all connected. So with you, it all came out. So my answers were a bit longer than I would usually tell to
No,
other people.
man, I'm just glad you just be yourself on here, man. And
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, we are friends, so I
Yes.
talk. People are going to enjoy hearing that from you and get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah.
And that's what this is about. These are my favorite thing about doing all these interviews. Almost every one of them have been with people I already know. Yet I've learned so much about my friends through doing all these interviews, which has been really enjoyable for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even deeper connections with my friends, and I love
Yeah.
that.
It's great that you do it. You know, I told you I often watch it myself, and I think it's a wonderful thing. And you get more of people because it's you asking it. You know, so
Yeah.
people tend to elaborate to tell about themselves more because they feel comfortable. I know I did.
Well, good, man. Good. Well, all right, everybody. If you're not a ruler, you should subscribe or become a ruler because we're going to be back in a minute for the turn two. But, dude, thank you for doing this, man. It was a pleasure talking to you as always. And yeah,
Thank you so
rulers,
much for having me.
you're welcome. And all right, rulers, we'll be right back. All right.